Okay, and we are rolling.
Oh my god.
So,
So, oh, do you
oh,
want to go
no,
first?
you go.
No, you go first.
Okay, so, uh, I guess let me pull these up again. Is there anything you want to start with, SoFech? Or like any topics you want to talk about first?
I don't know what you guys have on the docket, so I'm good with whatever.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm down to just talk about Gigantic.
we can start with one of the funny questions that I've prepared.
Sure.
Um, which character in Gigantic would you want to be best friends with?
I think
Oh,
the
so
obvious
true.
answer is Paco, just because he's so cuddly and he could protect you. He's gonna grow into a giant guardian. I think he would kind of suck at parties. He would be like the Kool-Aid man and like burst through your walls like a bull in a
Oh,
china
so
shop.
true.
But yeah, I think he'd make the best friend out of the bunch.
I would pick. I would pick Mozo.
Yeah,
I
why
don't know,
so?
personally, I think I would like to be Sven's test dummy.
You get turned into all sorts of crazy things,
Oh my god, I know.
snails and trees and whatever else.
I think
It
I
would be
would.
so awesome.
I think just Mozo's just so cool. A little goblin witch,
Yeah, Moses
I
a
bet you
thief.
could get her to give you a wand.
probably.
He stole all of those wands. So who's to say she won't steal from you?
That is true. Maybe I'll go bankrupt
Well,
because of her.
oh man.
Okay, onto another short one. Um, do you still talk with any former Mohicans?
Yeah, on occasion. Um,
No besties for life.
no, no. There's a secret Discord where all the Motigans are in there, and so I kind of lurk.
Wow,
I don't really talk too much, but yeah, I see what they're
A
up to, and it's
lurker,
cool.
join the club.
Yeah.
that's crazy. Okay, where did you first see Gigantic?
Think I saw the first trailer for it, the one that released in 2015. And I remember seeing Voden like jumping through Mistforge and just thinking that was super cool. And then I forgot what the name of it was. And so I must have spent weeks looking for it and I couldn't find it. And then I remember finding it eventually and I saved it and it's still like in my watch later playlist on YouTube.
Mm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the first trailer.
I think the first time I saw Gigantic was actually on the Xbox Free Games Store.
Oh, same here. And then I did my research about it.
Yeah,
Oh, nice. Xbox players. That's great.
Yeah, that's
Xbox
us.
players. Um, who was your favorite character for each role? Frontline, range support, and assassin.
Front line. I mean, I mean, fr that's hard. Do you consider do you consider Gnosis frontline? Because I kind of play Gnosis like a
I
frontline.
would.
Okay,
I
yeah.
would say we can put bruisers and like tanks in the same category.
All right, Rucker is a close second, but I'm gonna say Gnosis. Lord Gnosis is one of my favorite. He's top three favorite characters in the game, so he's up there as my favorite frontline. He's pretty squishy, and it's hard for him to frontline, but he can still like distract and even some of the upgrades on Mighty Yop where you get temp health. Even though you can only max like 500 temp health, it's still enough to be able to take a couple hits and
Bro,
get in and get
500's a
out.
lot
Yeah,
if you
I
think
mean,
about it.
yeah.
Well, assuming you
That's
don't get bursted down, it's a lot.
And yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? When you're the tank and you jump in, you're mostly taking player skills. So yeah, it's easy to get bursted down, but I think Gnosis is my favorite front line. And then what were the other ones? Assassin. As far as assassins go, I guess Ramsey would fit into that category. He kind of floats between Bruiser and
I want you to
Assassin.
know I'm judging you really hard right now.
You're doing what?
I'm judging you really hard right now.
Oh, okay.
And then ranged and support.
For oh man. Well, Actually, I changed my answer. I think Zenobia is my favorite for all four.
All four?
Yeah, all four. I
That
think
I like that
Zeno-
answer.
That's a good
yeah,
answer.
Zenobia is my favorite character in the game, and I think she just can fill all four of those roles. Is she support or is she ranged? And she can also play a bruiser. She can frontline. She can play assassin. I mean, yeah. Well, I don't know. Where does Zenobia fit in there? We're kind of getting off a track, but
No, it's
I
okay.
think
I think she fits
No,
in
I
support and
yeah,
assassin, personally.
okay.
yeah. I would say she's a support that can box.
Yeah, Vidasi is a really close second there too. I think Vidasi is my favorite character
Oh,
to play, but Zenobia
Flame
is my favorite
Seeker
character overall.
Cooper.
Oh, and yeah, Flameseeker's pretty overpowered, but I go with straight heals. I just love that play style,
Ooh.
just being able to just you know keep my team alive, even though it's hard.
I think
And
Vadasi
then
is my favorite character design support, but my least favorite to play.
I'm with Zenobia here. I love her design so much. Her lore's pretty cool too.
yeah, I agree.
We can do some of the longer questions now. In all of the unfinished things in Gigantic, which one is the one you would want to see finish the most?
On the top of my head, there are two. The first one is Bolga. She was supposed to be another like tank bruiser character with an enrage mechanic, and she was this like fat gargoyle ogre thing that had like a massive mace, and she would just swing it really heavy. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen that. We've shared some of the prototypes, and it was in some of the old builds. And yeah, she was just such an awesome character. It's too bad she never fully got fleshed out. And also, I
Yeah,
think the game just generally needs more tanks anyway. So she would have filled a role that is desperately needed.
I really love the concept
Bro,
art
I
for
think
her.
I oh, same here. I really think Record came out like too late.
Yeah, and the other one is Magma, which I don't think many people got a chance to play, but it was a map that had a lot of opportunities to cliff, and it was sort of like it was sort of 3 lane, but also kind of two. And there were these ledges that you could jump off of. So it was really easy to get from your guardian into the middle of the map. But then the paths to get back to your guardian, or like if you're sieging for a rampage, those were a little bit more challenging. And so it kind of funneled people in. And there was one point in the middle that would fill up with lava. So if you didn't get out, then you just get burned, right? It's
Oh,
just
that,
like
that sounds
getting knocked off.
awesome.
It was so
Would that
cool.
happen like around Clash, like in Sanctums?
I think it happened periodically.
Oh,
There was some trigger
Ooh.
for it. Yeah, and so it would happen throughout the match, and you would know that it was happening. Maybe it happened on the sides. I forgot. It's been so long since I played that map, but yeah, I enjoyed the layout of that map, and I like fire levels, and there was a big volcano erupting, and the lava would come in. It was pretty cool. Yeah, so that one I wish we could have gotten to, but yeah, I think those are the two things that I would have liked to see in the game the most.
Hmm.
I think the one thing I really wanted to see the most and get finished was probably Rang.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, maybe some people know of a Rose Cone Mango. He was like a player, and then he got hired onto QA, and then he went to school while he was doing QA at Motiga, and then he ended up being a designer. And I think that was one of his characters. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with that character. It was pretty sweet. Being able to throw the
Mm,
boomerangs and having them persist and having like your basic attack go out and come back. Pretty sweet. A lot of skill ceiling in that character.
very true. Personally, I really wanted to see the guy riding the bug come out. I don't know his name.
Yeah, pot shot is what we called it internally.
Oh, yes.
I didn't play too much of that character, but I remember there were a few things like there was like a machine gun ability or something, and then I don't actually remember what else that character had. But yeah, I'm sure everybody's seen the concept art for it. It's probably on the wiki. You can go and look it up. I think it's called Pot Shot. And yeah, it's like a little frog dude riding on a bug. It's
I
really
know,
cute.
it was so awesome.
On to the next one. In your personal opinion, why do you think Gigantic was unsuccessful?
So, I've done
I know it
many
really came
decks
out
and
with a hard hitter.
yeah, well, no, it's fine. I like talking about this stuff. So internally, I've done many decks and presentations and such about this topic, and the two primary things that I can say are one being the most important one is that we launched way too late in the game where Overwatch had already come out, and I have this whole list of stuff. I don't have it here, but it was like by the time that Gigantic released, PUBG was already in the world, and the market was moving towards battle royales and away from MOBAs and hero shooters. So we just hit the market way too late, and our game was announced first. So we just instead of being the front runner, we got compared to all these other games. Like everybody knows that HK gets compared to Bastion from Overwatch, even though we announced first and HK is in our media and stuff first. It's just Overwatch beat us to the punch, so we're the copies now, which is too bad. And then the other thing was the new player experience for our game was definitely lacking. And that was something that was a big struggle for us in the team, both at Motiga and at Perfect World when we were ready to push the game out the door. Is the like when you look at a traditional MOBA, they have a lot of these systems that are really easy for players to understand, like the creatures moving forward. So you just follow the creature, right? There's like these creeps that walk down the lane, and a new player sees these guys moving forward, so they're just like, okay, I'm gonna follow these dudes and see what happens. So it's easy to get them into the flow of combat. But in Gigantic, there was not really anything like that. You launch off an airship, and then you see a griffin butt in your face, and you don't know where to go. So that, along with um, going through the tutorial, which was actually pretty long for a lot of players, because of so many of the dense mechanics in the game. It we made a pretty thorough tutorial, and overall, I think the tutorial it succeeded in what it needed to do. It's just a lot of players, especially in a free to play PvP game, they just want to hop in and play with their friends. And so the tutorial being a barrier to entry and being as long as it was just didn't help. So we tried making it optional, and at that point I think it was too late, but by the time we went out with that, but also there was like other little things that kind of contributed to that, the free to play aspect, players just being more likely to hop in and drop it instead of being invested if they were to pay for it, things like the 6 GB of RAM requirement, which we didn't think was a big deal at the time, but the free to play market thought otherwise. And now you look at it, and most people have 8+ gigs. So, like, that wouldn't be a problem now, but it was just a barrier to entry before. And yeah, there were some other things too. And I'm just kind of spacing on them right now. But yeah, that was basically the primary things that prevented the game from being a success. The number one definitely being that we launched too late.
Do you think if the game costed money, it would have lasted a little bit longer?
I think if the game costed money, then then we could have supported development a little bit longer, because just in general, the free to play market caters to whales, and so you want people to buy a lot of stuff, right? And the game just didn't have that many things to buy in the first place. The way that we had structured the buying of skins at first was that you would like buy a buy the base skin, and then you could unlock all the recolors, the color variants, the CVs is what we call them, with crowns, which is the soft currency in our game. And then because of that, then people were only buying the one skin that they wanted instead of having to buy multiple skins. And so, like, other games solve that in different ways, but the way that we solved it just unfortunately didn't didn't work for the structure of our game. And this was also like before battle passes even existed. There was like some basic level of that stuff, but essentially the monetization was asking players to purchase characters or purchase our founders pack. And when you compared our game to everything else that was already out there, I feel like players were already fatigued with buying these founders packs for games that they would pick up and play for a little bit. So to loop back around, yeah, I think if the game was a premium title, I don't think it would have. I mean, it could have possibly sold a little bit better, but I don't think that would have saved it alone if it was premium.
Understandable.
I will say Gigantic is probably the first Founders Pack that I think I ever bought. So, eh,
Um, how was it working with Motigans and at Motiga?
It was insane. It was like a dream come true for me. You know, working at Motiga was my first job in the game industry. And so, a little bit of history about SoFetch. I went to college for film, and while I was in college, they spun up a video game development program, and so I switched over to that to design video games. And so I was in the second graduating class at my school for video game design. And then, unfortunately, we were in a recession at the time, and I was lined up with a job. And then that studio closed, which is was a pretty common thing back in the day. So then I just didn't do anything with video games. So I have a background in video games, but I didn't actually get into the game industry until 2016 when Motiga hired me on. So working with them was absolutely a dream come true. You know, I always wanted to get into the industry and I was ready for it and prepared, but I certainly was not prepared for the environment that I was in. It I Everybody at Motiga was just the best of the best, and then I get pulled in, I'm making meme videos and jokes and finding bugs and making Ashland fly and all this weird shit, and then they pull me in and I'm like, "Oh, fuck," I kinda felt like I was out of my league there, but it also encouraged me to work really hard, and it ultimately led to where I am today, which I think I'm pretty good at what I do, and I'm very happy where I am. But Motiga in general was just like the best place that I could possibly imagine. It was the most fun environment and everybody was there being helpful and we would have play tests every day at 4 p.m. when they would cook a new build. So, you know, everybody was getting involved. And it was a big open floor. So you could just go walk up to somebody and talk to them. And everybody had their little drawings and pictures and stuff all over the place. And there was fan art all over the walls and our key art and concept art. And there was an entire row of Nerf guns that people would shoot each other with when they would get salty after losing a match. And just the culture there was incredible. It was so fun.
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like a really, really nice place to work. I think you like with all those the gigantic weekly updates, that's what you did mostly, right? I think.
I did a lot of stuff. I basically took over the social media channels when I went to Perfect World, and starting with the Zandora video, I did all of those trailers. So initially, we had Perfect World's video team doing those like character trailers, and then I took those over entirely, and I did like 99% of all of those. I did the capturing. I did the editing, I did the voice work, I did the promotions, I put them on YouTube, I did the social copy, I did all that stuff. So that was mostly what I was doing for the second half, but also I contributed with the core team when I was at Motiga. I was setting up um, like weekly live stream events where we would get a whole bunch of people and keep our official Go Gigantic Twitch channel running. I was helping with some of the promotions and some of the other little videos here and there. Yeah, I don't know. I dabbled in a lot of things. I did a whole bunch,
Yeah,
gathering feedback and
I
stuff like
mostly
that.
remember you for the This Week in Gigantic, and I think a lot of people really did enjoy those.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of work for me. I would write the entire scripts for both myself and Amanda, and I would capture some of the footage in there, and I would work with our video producer James to know what we wanted to do. I would try to come up with something clever to put in the thumbnail that was different and unique every week, and I would work with the team at Motiga to figure out like what can we talk about, what is okay to say here and there, and yeah, it was a lot. I was working a lot of overtime on my own uh, on my own authority. It's not that they were pushing me, it's just that I was so dedicated to the game, I wanted to do all these things.
Yeah, that was the thing I think I looked forward to a lot of the time. Was the This Week in Gigantic?
They were they were sometimes some pretty long videos, so, like, yeah, I can imagine how much time that would have taken. Did you enjoy making them at least?
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I don't necessarily care about being on camera, but I care so deeply for the game that I felt like this is something that I can do, that I can be good at, and I've always felt like the best thing a community manager can do for a game is educate the players. And that's sort of that's like my MO now with all the other games that I'm working on is just you got to educate. You got to get all the information out there so that players aren't confused about what's happening, so that they know what's going on, so that, from my marketing perspective, so that they know that they're getting their value worth out of what they paid for the game or the time that they've invested. They want to know that this product isn't just going to fall flat. And, once we started seeing the signs about Gigantic, the player-based trends, then of course I started kicking things into overdrive, and I really tried to go as hard as I could.
Hmm. I, yeah, that's really awesome though. Like you really did some like large scale commitment to that. I'm sorry that it didn't exactly pay off.
Yeah, it didn't pay off for the game, I think. Maybe it did. Maybe it kept a few people around, but yeah, I don't think that anything we could have done could have saved the game at that point. It was just too late in the cycle and the trend was moving, which is unfortunate.
No,
But I mean, it
that
did pay
is
off.
really unfortunate.
Yeah, it paid off for my career, so I can't be too sad about
That's
that.
fair.
I put in that time and effort, and it worked out for me.
Okay, so next question. Do you think Gigantic is ever gonna come back?
I mean,
Honest answers
it's
only.
yeah, we're still trying. It's not as
No, I
easy a
get it.
process as people think. We can't just turn the servers back on. There are
Oh
contractual
no, of course
obligations,
not.
and yeah, there's just so much going on in the back end that we can't we can't share publicly. There's contracts and things, and yeah, it just sucks. But also, another thing to consider is we don't have a developer. Motiga isn't around to continue making the game, and I work for Gearbox
Yeah.
Publishing now, but so we're the publisher now. We don't actually make games. So you need someone who, and also like, if we were to bring Gigantic back with another developer, would they be able to produce the same quality that Motiga was able to create? Like some of the best people in the industry who have been working on that game for like 5 years at that point. So would we
Yeah.
actually be able to deliver on the expectation of the players? So yeah, I hope that Gigantic returns in some capacity at some point. I haven't given up. I know the players haven't given up either. It's just there's a lot more going on that players don't understand. It's just not as easy as enabling it on Steam or something. There's just too much else going
Yeah.
on. But
Because I mean, if we think about it, like if it was as easy as that, it would have already been done.
yeah, it would have been done a long time ago if it was that easy.
Um, so assuming that if Gigantic were to ever come back, what would you do differently?
Well, I think right now there aren't so many competitors because most of them have died. So Gigantic in the state, if you just were to take the last build and just push it out there, like hypothetically, if that's what you were to do, then we don't have to compete with all the other games like um, Battleborn, Bloodline Champions, um, Paragon. I can't remember all the other ones, but yeah, like most of these games have just died. Even like League of Legends and Dota 2 competitors aren't even around anymore. So that's just the
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
kind
way
of
of
just them.
yeah. What was that? Heroes of New Earth. I think that shut down again recently. And yeah, there's
True.
just nothing. See, that's how the
Also
trends
Heroes
go.
of the Storm stopped getting updates,
Yeah,
so it's kind of just in an archived, like dormant state for people to play.
yeah. So I think to your question, I think that we did make a few mistakes on marketing, and that's not to point at one person. That's just to say that hindsight's 2020, and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
that all of us tried to do was for the interest of the game. No doubt nobody tried to sabotage the game or try to fuck it up in any way. We all want all of our games to be a success, and at both Motiga and at Perfect World we would play almost every day. At Perfect World during lunchtime I would call everybody up and I would be like, hey, let's play some matches, let's go. And I was able to get a crew of people pretty much every day to play during lunch. Instead of eating food or hanging out with their family or socializing, I'm like, let's go get salty. Come on, let's hop into a quick match. So, everybody there wanted to play. But I think some of the things that I would do differently are the tagline specifically that everybody makes fun of, it's not really 5v5, it's 6v6, which is implicating that the Guardians are actually a player on your team or something. I think that was a confusing message. So I know without a doubt we would move away from that one. It's clever on paper, like, oh, we're different. But then when you actually read
Yeah.
it, it's kind of, when you see it on the Steam store page, you're like, maybe that's not so accurate.
Um,
Also, oh yeah, go
for
ahead.
the larger maps, do you think you would ever, like, implement a 6v6 system?
No, no. The problem with that, we've tried a bunch of things, and like internally, we were trying 4v4, 3v3, 2v2, 1v1s, all that stuff. And the game is balanced around 5v5, and the maps are designed specifically for 5v5. So
Okay.
the maps already even got smaller because they felt too big. I don't know how many people remember this, but a lot of the Guardian arenas were condensed or just collapsed entirely. Like Mistforge used to have a big Guardian arena in the back that was gorgeous, and it had all these pillars, and there were like rivers running through it, and waterfall in the background,
I
and all
do
this
remember
architecture and
that.
stuff.
I
Yeah,
do.
they were so cool, and that also meant that like when you would wound a guardian the first time, they would move forward instead of having to wound them twice to enter clash. So when that, like, we just felt that the maps were a little bit too big, and that's a whole deeper conversation. But essentially, yeah, we condensed the maps because they were just too big for what we wanted. And actually doing that, Motiga, again, experts at what they do. We tested everything internally, and the design team and the environment artists and level designer and stuff, all fantastic. They were basically able to get all of the maps down to like a 15, 16-minute playtime, which is incredible. Almost every
That's
single
not
one of the
bad.
4 maps that we're in had an average of like 15 and a half minutes. So yeah, I mean, I think 6 players would throw the balance off pretty drastically, and you would have to
No,
go
that's
back
fair.
and, yeah, not only change the maps, but maybe increase the health of the wounds. So how much do you need there? You'd have to go back and possibly adjust some of the buffs or debuffs that affect a certain amount of characters. You'd have to go back and balance all of the characters to see how they work in those game modes. Yeah, that's just like that's a mess. You'd have to adjust the airships, which only have 5 spawn points. It's just like there's so much that you have to do. Any little change makes a huge ripple effect.
Of course, of course. Um, were there any other Guardians that were, like, planned to be released? Or, like,
Yeah.
factions per se?
Yeah, I forgot the faction names. Maybe I'll remember them as we go, but there's 5 total factions, and the Guardians are by far the hardest thing to develop. And I don't know if you remember, going off on a tangent again, I'm very tangential, but balance-wise,
No, you're
um,
totally good.
yeah, it's fun to talk about Gigantic. So in earlier builds of the game, especially in like the 2016 open beta that we did when Paco released, that was actually before I started working at Motiga. Same year, I just started working for them in October of that year. But in like January, February, March, something like that, we did Paco in 2016, and the Guardians had different attacks. So Leyrin, the Griffin, would shoot out tornadoes like whirlwinds, and they would push you back, and Gren had this like acid spit, and the acid spit was so fucking overpowered. It was crazy, and they just could not get it to a point where it felt good. Leyrin, all she did is just like push you away for a moment, and then you just get back in. And Gren was just zoning the hell out of you. There were all these poison circles, and it was preventing your healing and keeping you in combat. And he was just like spitting acid everywhere. Oh, it was cool, but it was obnoxious. And so yeah, those 2 Guardians alone had to be homogenized. We also did other things with the Guardians too. Again, on another tangent, I'll get back to answering the question. Just fun to talk about. We did Power
No, you're
Pause,
good.
which is, yeah, where you would have to, the Guardians would rampage, when they're flying around and shooting lasers and shit, and you could attack their hands to like gain power for your team, and you would gain a little bit of power incrementally so that you could not hit the enemy and still end up getting a full shield for defense on a
Hmm.
rampage. So like things like that just meant that Guardians were so incredibly hard to balance, and we don't want one side feeling like they're at a disadvantage. So yeah, aesthetically you could possibly switch them out, but then it would take time to create something that is the size of like 3 characters, so it has to be higher fidelity, and it has to have a whole kit of animations. And each of the guardians, like the 2 guardians now, have a special animation for when they rampage and when they capture the other guardian. So the more guardians you have, it exponentially increases the amount of animations you have to create, because like uh when when Gren picks up Leyrin during a rampage, he like twists around her and spins and slams her down. So like, what would he do if he was fighting another snake? There would just be a hollow area inside of his coil.
Yeah.
So you have to create something specific for that. And then yeah, it's just like there's so much to do with that. So yeah, adding new guardians was like the very bottom of the priority list. That's just too much. So to the question, yeah, there were a bunch of other guardians that they had concepted, one for each of the 5 houses. I remember the one for Tesserus, which is like the mechanical dudes. I think it was a lobster or a crab or something. It was like a mech, some kind of crustacean, and
Okay.
that would have been awesome. And then I think Kakaresh, which are like the shadowy dudes, I think they had some kind of werewolf or a wolf type dude. And then the other one, I'm forgetting the name of it, but I
Well,
believe it was a
it's
squid.
it's House
Milkor?
Melchior.
Oh yeah, Melchior. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, you know. Yeah, I believe it was a squid or something like that. And then there were also other concepts too. The concept artists would just draw cool stuff all the time. And we had some concepts arts for like a gorilla and a bunch of different type of golems that were covered in moss, like ancient stone creatures. There was
Like
one
Shadows
that,
of the Colossus type?
yeah, exactly, like Shadows of the
Ooh.
Colossus, just a little more vibrant and colorful. There was one of
Yeah.
like a Vadasi looking dude, and he had even more than 4 arms. He had like 6 or 8 arms, and he was floating, and he had like this massive flame on his head, and he was, yeah, there were some other cool things like that. There was a dude with a sword and shield, and yeah, there's just like a bunch of concept art. And again, that was the lowest priority thing because there were just so many other important things. But yeah, those in another reality could have been in existence.
Going back a little on that, kind of a side tangent. I think my favorite house is definitely House Melchior, where they're like kind of assassin type bounty hunters, and their characters are like, I don't know how to describe it. They look like they're from Zon from League of Legends.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wonder if we've shared concept art of those. It might be out there somewhere.
Uh,
Moving to a lighter topic really fast. Um, were there any plans to release like any new creatures?
Yeah, well, I think we got out most of the creatures, but there were other types of the demons that never saw the light of day. Unfortunately, they just never made it in. But there was what's called an Oni demon, and you know what the demons look like? He just kind of had fur
Mhm.
around him, and he was red
Oh,
and blue.
okay.
Yeah, he was pretty cool. And I don't know if he had anything special. I don't know if they ever hooked anything up. I think he just functioned exactly the same way as the other demons. And then there were which slimes were antiquated. They worked with the old power system, which the old power system was that when you summoned a creature on a power point, it would passively collect power. So the slimes were similar to the obelisk, but you kind of want to put them on like an enemy or a neutral point, but the slimes
yeah.
would consume their own health when they were alive. And so that only worked with the old version, right? You wouldn't want a creature that just kills itself. So you would put it on the enemy point, and it would suck power from an enemy point and then kill itself so that the enemy wouldn't get any power from killing it. So it functioned in
Oh,
that regard. Also, the training grounds has the Motiga creature, which was a core piece of the creature spawns in the original version of the game that I played in like 2015 or something. And that was allowing you to teleport forward, I believe. So you would basically like Mistforge was the only map or wait, I think Canyon was in there too. Yeah, but like Mistforge, you had a summon point in the far back on what was called Bell or Chime at the time, which is like where just a little bit in front of your guardian where you would jump off of the airship, and then you could run up to the Motiga creature and it would teleport you further forward. So you could just kind of skip a bunch of the running and get into the battle pretty quick. So I think those are the only ones. Yeah.
Jack, would you like to take your turn?
Yeah. What made you fall in love with Gigantic the most?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think there's
For me,
one
it was the
thing.
art style.
Yeah, the art style is very fetching. It still holds up today even. You look at screenshots and it's just this timeless style that holds up, and I don't know, it's incredible.
I think no one at the time could really like compete with the art style.
Yeah, I would say still Gigantic looks unique. You can see a screenshot of one of the characters or one of the environments and you know it's Gigantic. But I don't think there's any one thing that really drew me into the game so much. I think I just had a lot of fun playing it, and I felt like there was a big community around the game, and also it was exclusive. So that was another thing, like, oh yeah, I get to do this special thing with this small group of people in the core community, and I get to talk directly with the developers, and I get to play on all their internal builds, and everybody I was playing against was really good at the game, so that helped accelerate my skill level and understanding. And yeah, I don't know, I just ended up hopping into the game one day to see if I could train so I could be as good as everyone else. And I had a little bit of knowledge of Unreal Engine at the time from school, so I discovered that I could hop into the maps and start playing around with the characters. And then I started making weekly videos exposing some of the broken shit that I would find, and being able to fly and being able to spam abilities and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, I think it was just kind of like an elevator or something that increased in speed the more that I got involved. I just kept getting sucked in.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
a lot of sense. I think I think it was definitely what Melon said. I would think it was definitely the art style, and that it was just different from other games that I hadn't played at the time.
I was a League player at the time, so the fact that there was such a new type of MOBA was amazing to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people found that refreshing, but it also the barrier to entry was really high in that regard, where you go in and for me personally, like top, carpal tunnel, and you just have to click so much and like ARPGs and stuff. So after I play for like 4 or 5 hours, I just can't keep going anymore. And a third person shooter just feels a little more natural. And
I
so I
get it.
think, yeah, it brought the shooter audience and the MOBA audience in together. So yeah, that was a cool thing about the game.
On to the next question. What did you do? Oh, well, you kind of answered this, but what did you do before Gigantic?
I was working in tech. So I was sort of on-site tech support. I was driving all around California for some of our clients and fixing their servers and just, break fix stuff. Computers broken, printers spewing ink everywhere, somebody unplugged their monitor, stuff like that. Yeah, I was just fixing computers.
Got it.
A Cold Stone classic.
Yeah.
Did you have a character you hated to play against in Gigantic?
I think, hmm, I don't
If
think
you
I
don't say Woo, you're capping.
oh, I don't think Woo's that bad. I think Woo is very
Oh.
predictable. And I know that you guys play on a different build than everyone else in the world, but yeah, Wu in the final state of the game wasn't really that bad. The worst thing about Wu was getting desynced, and that's horrible,
No,
and
that's
that,
so
that just shouldn't
fair.
happen. Yeah, but um, honestly,
We
I
love a
think,
good Woo bug.
yeah. Real quick, side tangent. I'll say something and then I'll get back to this. But we
Mhm.
seriously considered removing Wu from the 1.0 launch because he was so buggy, and we thought
Oh,
that
I
he
heard
might
about
create a,
that.
a bad environment for new players. because the expert players were already playing, and we didn't know what the server infrastructure was going to be like when we started crossplay between Arc and Steam, and so we were concerned that Woo was just going to be such a problem for us and turn people away. Fortunately, I don't think that that ended up being much of a problem. The Woo disconnects were not that frequent. I mean, you would see them everywhere just because there was enough volume of people that were playing the character that you would experience that. But it was like a 1 in a million chance for that to actually happen. But then people started figuring out ways to actually like mi- uh
Make it
to
happen.
yeah, to reproduce that, and then
Of
it started becoming
course.
a problem. But then, nobody wants to get hit by that and nobody wants to deal with it. So, yeah, that was a funny thing. But I don't think Wu was all that bad. Because if you play Wu, then you know Wu's combo, and you kind of understand, especially at the higher level, like you know how the players tend to build, and so you kind of know what they like to do, and so you catch onto their patterns. I think for me, if I had to say, Amani is the hardest character to play against. I don't hate
Actually,
playing
no,
against any
that's
character.
totally fair.
Yeah, Amani is playing a different game. She's not playing Gigantic. She's playing Call of Duty, and every other character is playing Gigantic. So Amani, especially at level 10 in Clash when she's fully online, you just get sniped from across the map and there's nothing you can do. And that's just a symptom of the character. I think she's good for the game. I think that she's a fun character to play. I don't think she's that bad to play against because you kind of want to draft an assassin on your team to get back there and mess with her. And she is pretty squishy and she can be easy to take down on some maps. And if you catch her out, if you catch her unprepared, then you basically blow her up, right? So I feel like it's balanced.
Yeah.
It's just that she's just not playing gigantic. You just get sniped from across the map and it's like, well, what do you do about that?
I
Yeah,
don't know, I think the issue is that she doesn't have any damage fallout.
Yeah, we actually had to implement a system. I think this came in before 1.0 when we launched on Arc and Steam. I'm pretty sure it was done. Actually, I don't remember the timeline for it, but I'm fairly certain it was in by 1.0. But Amani used to be able to snipe a Guardian from across the map, and
I
then they had
heard
to
about that.
yeah, and then they had to implement a max range to hit the Guardian wounds. So now, like, it's 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 pretty consistent to find that spot. Like if you play on Canyon, you can jump up on top of Cactus and still be able to shoot. But if you
yeah,
step just a little bit off of Cactus, that's the max range. So yeah, basically like anything. I mean, that's still really far. Think about defending against that. She's hidden behind the damn cactus. But
No,
yeah, it's
literally. No, I think a lot of the maps do a good job of, like, telling you how far you can be before you can't hit it anymore.
and
well, I did hate playing against Amani, but I did play Trip, so that is kind of the biggest counter to her.
I was a Mozu player, so I felt that.
yeah. I've killed plenty of Amanis with a Mozu Reflect shield.
Oh my god, I love reflecting as soon as they use kill shot.
Yeah, because you can hear it, right? That's one of the cool things is that you hear all the focuses going off. And so if you're in critical condition, then you can just pop it and stand on top of it and you're safe for a few seconds.
Yeah, I did
Oh,
really
yeah.
like that you could be able to hear the focus, so you know if like, and before going into a team fight, like a big one, that you know that they don't have focus, like they could very much use that to your advantage.
Amani's got frost ammo too. Oh, that's so rough.
Oh,
She can snare you from across the map.
to be fair, whenever I played Oni, I do go Frostbolt. I'm guilty.
Yeah, it's rough. Amani's a cool character though, it feels good to play her.
That is true.
On to another question. Sorry, I was trying to look for one. Out of all the creatures in Gigantic, which one would you want as a pet?
Man, I think I think you got to say a baby Cerberus just because they're so adorable. But I don't know, I think they'd be rascals. They'd be lighting your shit on fire or teleporting and getting into weird places or
I don't
like
know, for me, I think it'd be a young bloomer. Perfect. Silly little looking guy.
yeah, they're pretty cute. They're like roly. the roly polies. They're just so like
No,
rotund.
literally.
They'd never get hurt. They'd like fall down the stairs and just pop back up and be totally fine.
I think
So true.
mine would be definitely a Motiga. I just think they're out of all the creatures probably the cutest for me.
Yeah, true. I'll agree with you there. Definitely the Motigas. They are super cute. They've got those little T-Rex arms, and they just look happy all the time. Just want to
Oh
give
my
them a
god,
pat.
the way they would run around in the training grounds.
Yeah, they're
Their little
stoked.
arms up.
What were the, if you can remember or know, what was the first character to like be made in concept?
First character to be made. I'm gonna guess it was Gnosis. I don't actually know. There were probably a few characters that were made simultaneously so that they could put them in the build and start playing. But I would guess it was Gnosis. Some other of the top competitors are like the old version of Trip, which she looked hideous. I'm so glad Trip got a redesign.
She did.
And yeah, and Roland was another early one too. And also Margrave. I think those are the four that are the most likely to have been created first. Margrave actually had weapons before. Margrave was
Didn't he
pretty
have
different.
The hand.
didn't he have one of those swinging things? I forget what they're called.
Yeah, like a flail.
Yeah.
So Margrave, each one of his abilities was a different thing. So I think like his basic attack was an axe, and then also Hellfire was actually an axe that he would like spin in a circle. And then he had Charge Forth, which was like a spear, and then I think Leap was like a mace or a flail or something like that. Yeah, actually, I showed that raid video, and I believe some of that stuff is in there. So any
Hmm.
one of the characters in there is a candidate for one of the first ones.
Got
But
it.
yeah, I would guess one of those four is probably the first to be made.
So what was the reason for Roland? Did he ever get released? I don't remember.
No, unfortunately, Roland, seriously, Roland and Kajir were next up. One of those two characters was going to come out, and I was trying to push for Roland. I was like, come on, this character deserves to be back in the game, but unfortunately, he just couldn't make it in time.
I don't know,
But
man. I really think we needed a new assassin out of like the 3.5.
I think we need Bolga. We need a tank.
Agreed.
But yeah,
Agreed.
getting another assassin would be good too. Because there was a heavy emphasis on range characters, range DPS, and casters, and the best way to deal with them is with an assassin. So yeah, I agree that assassins are pretty high up there too, especially with some of the open maps like Mistforge, where you can just siege on a bridge the whole game.
Right.
Yeah, that can be kind of rough.
Because
So
you can
assassin.
always run two bruisers, a 2 DPS, and like an Ashland if needed
Yeah, true.
to make up for the lack of tanks. Because there were a number of bruisers.
I think a lot of characters can be played as Bruiser that maybe weren't intended to be Bruiser. But that's
That
also
is
something
very
that's
true.
really cool about the way that Gigantic is designed. Is most of the characters don't I mean, well, just to preface this, you don't gain any health for leveling up. You don't gain any damage for leveling up. The only thing you gain, like so your character at level 1 and at level 10 is the same. The thing that you gain are the upgrades, which you get to choose. And a lot of those are designed to be support tools, and even the damage that you get out of them is not super substantial. When characters with like the lowest health in the game, it's either 1500 or 2k. I forgot. I think it's
Pretty sure
1500
it's
on like Mozu.
1,500.
Yeah, like Mozu and Trip and maybe someone else have like. Well, Rucker's different. I think Rucker only has like 5 or 600 HP, but then he has a big shield, so I don't think that
Yeah.
counts.
I don't think that counts either. You're
I
right.
think Mozu and Trip do have the lowest HP pool.
Yeah, so when you have 1500 HP and you're getting an upgrade that gives you like 60 damage, that's not significant enough to make a huge difference. So, yeah, one of the cool things about the game is that you can play all these characters in different ways. You can sort of play Gnosis as a bruiser or an assassin. Same with Ramsey. Same with Paco. You can play him as a bruiser or an assassin
Bro,
or a tank.
Tank Woo.
Yeah, Tank Wu's absurd. Oh, he's so strong. I
Uh,
think That's Tank Wu is more toxic than Assassin Wu, I
I
think.
agree.
It's hard to deal with him, especially like Typhoon's Fury is just the craziest steroid in the game. He's one of the best characters when has Typhoon's Fury active,
It's
and
so
especially if he
true.
pops like a level 3 focus on your ass, then you just can't. He's just such a great boxer.
I've
He can take on
experienced the
1v5.
pain.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
brutal.
been there.
So why
But
was Roland never released? Like, was there a certain reason?
yeah, Roland was initially released and then he was undone. The primary reason for that I was told was because he had a grappling hook ability that would pull him and that would bug out all the time. It was essentially like, as far as I was told and I understand, it was a very similar code to Wu's tongue. It's just it doesn't pull the enemy to you, it pulls you to a thing. So if you were to put that on destructible environments or if you were to latch it onto an enemy and any of those things moves, then you're getting desynced, you're flying through the world, you're going all over the place. Or the converse to that, which is potentially even worse, is that nothing happens and your skill goes on cooldown, and that feels awful for the players. Also, so yeah, the functionality thing I think is the primary reason, as far as I recall, that Roland was removed. But also he needed to get a redesign. He had his old skin, like how I said that Trip's old skin was kind of terrible, and she got a
Yeah.
skin that, well, yeah, she got an updated version of her current self in a skin. It was one of the it was one of the desert skins,
I
and so it had the
yes,
same
I do remember
coloration.
that.
Yeah, and so Roland had to go in for a redesign. He was like initially like that he was like a big game hunter kind of dude, and then
Mhm.
I think they decided to kind of transition his style into being more of a bounty hunter instead of looking like that dude from Jumanji, the hunter. Yeah, and so now he's a little more modern and
I
he
mean,
just
to
fits
be
the
fair,
style of
I
the
feel
game.
like his original design made sense for Raid, but not gigantic.
Yeah, true.
I do think it's interesting that you did kind of start out with like a Monster Hunter type game instead of the MOBA.
Yeah, Raid was very different. I got to play it once and it it was kind of busted, so I didn't get the best experience, but I know that that version of the game was play tested internally a lot until it became gigantic. So
Valid.
yeah, I think Roland also his focus got changed a few times. So I don't know how much everybody knows about Roland. I actually have the wiki up here, so I'll pull it up while I'm talking. But Roland, he's kind of like a mid-range character. So he has a shotgun blast and he has a bolus to snare, and his basic attack is also a shotgun blast. And then he has a grappling hook, and his focus was a few different things at different times. So he would throw out like a drone, and the drone would do different stuff. And I think the drone was having some problems too. Like it would get stuck on things or it wouldn't despawn and then you couldn't use it again. But the drone at first was like it was like a turret that you would throw down on the ground and it would just fire at anything that entered the area. But I think the area denial on that was just too good. And especially with how fast Roland was building focus, because he had a shotgun, each one of the pellets was like giving you focus and stuff. He was able to put down this turret that would just obliterate people because area denial is very good and gigantic. You can put it on top of a creature, you can put it on
True.
top of.
Shoutouts to Grizoma.
Oh, yeah. Griselma, the most underrated character. And then I think there
She's a
was a.
monster.
Yes, she summons monsters and she is the monster herself. Yes, Griselma is the real monster. So I think there was a version, I'm pretty sure that Roland's turret would just follow him and it would just stay on his shoulder and shoot at things. And that just felt a little boring. We wanted to do something that was more interesting. A lot of the characters have like, most of the characters aren't basic. They all have something special about their kit, something to identify them. And Roland with that focus was just like, okay, he's shooty guy. He doesn't really have much going on. And there was another version of it too. I forgot what it was. Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I remember playing it once in like a very very early build, but his focus had gone through a few iterations and they hadn't landed on anything they really liked.
Understandable.
So design wise, who's your favorite character?
Does that mean hit or aesthetics?
I would say aesthetics.
Aesthetic wise, does that include lore, or does
Yeah,
that just include like does that just their model?
we can include lore as well. Actually, we can do both.
I think just like character model wise, I think Vadasi is probably my favorite. I think she has one of the most interesting silhouettes in the game, and she has really cool animations. And you just look at this character and you're like, that's a healer.
Yeah.
She looks like seasoned, but also godly. Like she's been around for a long time, but she just has this like timeless, ageless appearance to her. And she's like the judge, and she has that third eye that's just staring into your soul. And yeah, she's like that perfect mix of like good and evil, the angel and the devil. And I think that really comes across in her design. I think that's executed flawlessly. As far as lore goes, I think Mozu is the coolest. Mozu's just so silly. She's like a little goblin magician that she wanted to be like a wizard, and she kept getting kicked out of these different training schools. So then she's like, all right, I'm just going to steal all these wands. And so in Mozu's animations, it's hard to see because it moves so fast, but if you slow that stuff down, she's actually pulling wands out of her backpack and using them and tossing them. So she has an infinite backpack that just it's like a bottomless pit of wands that she's constantly pulling out and using and throwing and tossing. And that's in her design too, where she's just like, I don't know what this does. Let me try it. And she's just like, zap, she's zapping everything. And lore wise, I think that is so cool.
That is actually so awesome.
I do love
Wow.
Mozu.
Yeah,
I knew Mosey was quirky, but I didn't know she was that quirky.
yeah, she's got a
I've never seen
wand in
the
her tail
animation slowed
too.
down. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like three
I love
wands sticking out
tractor
of her
beam.
backpack, and she just uses all of them. For a
Do you
tractor
think she
beam, I think
go
she uses the one on her tail.
Yeah, she does. Do you think after combat she would go back and pick them up? Or do you
I don't
think,
know.
like, it's a one and done?
She'd probably just go steal more.
Oh, you're so right.
I think if there was like a sort of like lounge area that like all the geek characters hung out in, she would definitely steal everything. Like she would have like a Lord Gnosis spear and stuff like that.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, don't let her get too close to your things. She'd be stealing everything.
I
I
think
mean, I feel like only if you make her upset. Just
Yeah,
don't
probably.
deny her stuff.
Yeah, if you're on her good side, she might be cool with you.
I think my
Mayhaps.
favorite character lore wise is definitely Paco. It's kind of sad though, but I still really like it.
I don't know, I think Tytos is pretty cool.
Yeah, Taito has that classic lone wanderer kind of thing, where his only friend is Fang, which is his right hand man, right hand f- ferret.
True. So,
Mouse, rat,
I don't know, if you ask me, I think Tyto's a suit full of ferrets.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
It's just a whole stack of fangs. There's not
Yep,
actually anything in there. It's just fangs.
that would have been a
agreed.
cool concept. Like maybe his ult instead of the dash is just he throws a bunch of fangs at you.
That'd be so funny.
Shotgun blast of fangs.
All these fangs, they're a family and they really wanted to go see an R-rated movie, but they couldn't get in, so then they had to stack up inside like those classic cartoons where you have three kids in a trench coat. It's
Oh
just a
my
bunch
god,
of
that's
fangs in a
awesome.
trench coat walking into a movie.
Yeah, I think that'd be amazing. I guess into some of the questions to possibly wrap it up. Um, does this is some kind of hard question, but does Gearbox know that Gigantic exists?
Ooh, that is
Yeah, I mean,
they
my
bought it.
yeah, the company that I work for is called Gearbox Publishing San Francisco, but everything internally is still the same as Perfect World Entertainment. It's like same CEO, a lot of the same people that I was working with. Nobody
Oh.
was laid off during the transition. So it's literally just a straight name change. All of our games are the
Oh.
same. All of our internal documentation is the same. All of our marketing stuff is the same. Yeah, like nothing happened except for a little bit different paperwork and a name change on our side. We're still pretty independent. We get to work on our own stuff. We publish our own games. That's it. We're just instead of with a Chinese company, we're with like a Dutch company or something.
Got
I
it.
forgot what Embracer is, but yeah, they're like European. So that's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you comment on infernal balling by chance? I'll send
Oh
the
yeah.
image.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a little memester in my spare time, so I just thought that was funny. I would love to
Yeah,
have that printed on a shoe.
I thought it was very funny as well.
Yeah, for those who can't see, it's a silhouette of a demon, and one of the adult demon's attacks is they jump up into the air and they slam energy down on the ground. And so he's mid-air and he's got a what is a basketball in his hand and he's going to dunk.
I will put it on screen
Uh,
on my OBS
I
right
must
now.
ask, thoughts on oh fuck, wrong image. But what are your thoughts on Gangster Oru?
Gangster Aura, you're gonna have to share this with me. I don't know if I've seen that one.
Oh, here you go. It's a handmade image from a friend of mine. I I hope you like it. It's a dear treasure to me.
Oh wow. Oru looks like he's having a great time.
I know, right? So happy for him.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. All right, I can dig it.
Have you seen all of the Oru memes and all the emotes?
I don't.
There's so many.
There's
Yeah, I've seen some of the emotes. Those are a
this is
riot.
my favorite.
Yeah, that
Okay,
one's so funny.
Oru.
I also
Yeah, that's
really
great.
I like this one as well.
Oh yeah.
I think Oru is just like a meme character.
Yeah,
I love
Oru
him
is the
though.
meme character.
He's honestly one of my favorites. I wish he was a little better. I feel like he
Yes.
was okay in live, like, at best.
Yeah, Oru had a tumultuous development cycle. Initially, he was supposed to be a support character, but I think his kit was just too challenging to activate because you had all these cards that would overlap. You used to be able to put cards on the walls and he had traps and stuff everywhere. And yeah, he just didn't really have an identity except for CC and he
True.
needed something to do. Yeah, and so the way that and also Oru I think got pulled up. I think Javash was supposed to be next, and then there was some internal deliberation about which characters would be best for the game at the time. And so, that's why Ramsey got pulled up and he was there at launch. I know a lot of people were looking forward to Javash, and Oru was initially called Orbit. That was the internal name. And this
I don't know,
character,
man. Petrify seemed kinda OP.
yeah, well, yeah, there were a lot of OP things that fortunately got scrubbed out. All that internal playtesting, we were able to find that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I made a mistake actually. Or was called Glyph, not Orbit. So in Glyph, that was this thing, right? He would put like glyphs down everywhere instead of the cards, and it was just like in some of the early tests, he was just obnoxious, and he couldn't do anything except for CC people to hell. So yeah, I think that maybe a little bit more damage and he'd be okay to fill the role of a mage. But also, you look at characters like Charnock and Mozu, who are mages, and they have very clear identities, being that Charnock is a fat burst mage, and Mozu is a little bit trickier. She's easier to play, so her damage isn't as high, but she's very consistent, and she has a little bit of CC, and she's kind of a glass cannon in that regard where Oru's identity is more leaning towards that CC, so he still kept some of what he had before, it's just like the combos take a little bit long to set up, and you don't get that much of a reward out of them. It's hard to be able to put your cards on
Nah,
someone
man, if you
and
take
get the
Ace
days
in the
when you
Hole
need them.
level 2, it's worth it.
Which upgrade?
On his Q, his traps, Ace in the Hole allows them to detonate once, and instead of pushing them back, they take a ton of damage. So you could Q right click E, and they would, like, be hella chunked.
Oh, hmm. Yeah, the guy that I used to play with, K-Suds, I don't know if he used that one, so I wouldn't see that.
Mm, it's not
Huh.
bad. It's a pretty reliant form of DPS instead of going the CC route. Shoutouts to Curse, by the way.
True.
Curse, the status effect?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Curse the player? Oh, yeah, Curse is crazy.
But yeah, Jack, is there anything else you wanna touch on?
Not that I know of. Is there anything you want to still talk about? SoFech?
Um, ooh,
I mean, I could talk about
yeah.
Gigantic all day. So if there's anything else you want to ask, I'm here.
I don't think there's
I have
anything.
caught on to that.
I don't think there's anything on the top of my mind
Actually, can we
currently.
talk about Zandora a little bit?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Zandora is a 2-hour story. What do you want to know?
Was she based off Sona from League of Legends?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Really?
But
When was
here,
Sona
let's
released?
ask a better one. What made you wanna make an aura bruiser, I guess?
Uh, I didn't create any of the characters, so I can't exactly say that. But I know that
No, that's
Zandora,
fair.
yeah, as far as I understand, Zandora was designed to be a tank. She was supposed to be a support tank, and that didn't execute exactly as we had intended. Um, and she
Yeah,
she
she's a
was
little squishy.
yeah. Zandora is one of the Eternals, and so that was a part of the lore in the game, and that was the first opportunity to get to get one of the Eternals in the game. So I know that, like, lore, aesthetic wise, she made sense. We needed more tanks. Zandora.
Bro, I feel like everyone looked at her and they were like, pink lady. And I feel like that was about it.
Yeah, Zandora would be one of my favorite characters. On paper, she is. Zandora, okay, something that I don't think many people know about Zandora, and you can probably go back and find these things, but Zandora, when she released, she had a fat baby face. She had huge pudgy cheeks, and she just looked like she was stung by a bee. And she's like running around the battlefield like her face is swollen, or she's like a chipmunk. She has nuts in her mouth or something. And I just thought it was so fucking hilarious. Her old face. She just had this pudgy cheeks. She was a baby. And then in I think like the next hot fix or two hot fixes after that, pretty soon after we had released her, they gave her a very sharp facial features. She now has like super sharp cheeks at the top. She has a little bit more defined eyes. Other things happen too, something with her chin maybe. But yeah, Zandora, she used to be a baby and then now she's a full ass grown adult.
Well, look at her go. Growing up. But other than that, I think that's it. So
Yeah.
I really just wanna say thanks for, like, giving us the time of day for this.
Oh yes, thank you both for doing this. I feel very honored to be the first guest on this podcast, and I would love to come back if there's any opportunities for that. I enjoy
Yeah.
talking about Gigantic all day, every day, and it's fun to do this. And I'm really happy that you're both so invested in the game and the community that you're spending your own time doing this as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
yeah, of course.
a lot of people that have been active in the community lined up for some episodes.
Oh, awesome! That'll be great. I can't wait to
We
listen.
even a ex-pro player, so
Wow, that's
yeah,
great to hear. I
I
Yeah.
know
know,
you're
right?
you're both doing a service to the gigantic community. The game isn't truly dead if it still lives in people's hearts.
And in
So
private
true.
servers.
Yeah, we don't talk about those.
Yeah, obviously.
Not real. Come on. You know better.
They don't exist. They're all just figments of our imagination. There's
True.
I
no
made them
one
up.
named SoFech in Geek Heaven.
True. We made them up. Sorry, SoFech. You're not real anymore.
Oh yeah, I know. Thank you.
Oh, of course,
I am just a
anytime.
figment.
Well, it was great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks again.
Oh my
Super
god.
happy to be here. It was a
Yeah,
lot
of
of fun.
course. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, really. Kind of cool I get to say that I've interacted with SoFech on like
Yeah.
a one-on-two terms.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I don't feel like this behemoth that just towers over everybody. I mean, my roots are in the community. I wasn't always a developer. I was a player at first. So I hope to maintain that sort of attitude and feel to things. Even though I still have to respect the business side, I mean, everybody that works in the industry is still just a human. And so I love this
Hmm.
game just as much, maybe even more than anybody else out there. It's really,
No,
it's
I
so
would I
close to
would
my
say
heart.
you do.
I would say you're Gigantic's #1 fan.
I agree. I feel like
Oh,
if Gigantic had 100 fans, you would be one of them, and if there were none, you would be dead.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with both of you. So thanks. This is a lot of fun.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm glad. I'm glad that we can make it, not boring.
Well, I guess that is it then. Do you want to do the see you on the airship with us?
Yeah,
Yeah, would
sure.
you
How do you
like
want to
to?
do it?
Uh, how do we want to do it?
Well, right now we're called the fellas, so
But we can still say it. I think it'll be a good send off.
okay. So, I'm thinking this was the fellas, and we'll see you next time on the airship. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Where do you
works.
want me to come in?
I don't know, I was saying we could just do a countdown and do it
Yeah, I
together.
think we're gonna say. I think it'd be better in unison. We might need 2 attempts at it.
Maybe. Who knows? We might be cool and get it on the first try.
Okay.
Beginner's luck.
Beginner's luck. Yeah. All right, you wanna kind of sound on?
I would love to. We're gonna start at 3. So we're 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow, this is
Wow,
going
This is
we're
working
so
out
great.
amazingly.
swimmingly.
Well, we're so good at this.
All right. How about we do this? You both can say this is the fellows, or one of you can say this is the fellows,
Okay.
and then you say until next time, and that's our cue to jump in. We'll see you on the airship.
Okay. Okay. I like
Okay,
it.
okay, okay. Okay, Jack, we're gonna say this was the fellas together, okay?
Okay.
3,
Okay. How
2,
about me and you
come on.
say this is the fellas, and then so that you say until next time, and then we all say the see you on the airship.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
This was
This
the
was the
fellas.
fellas.
And until next time, we'll
We'll
see
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 you
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 on
on
the
on the
the
airship.
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 That was amazing.
Look at
Hey,
us
that was pretty
go.
good. That was pretty good.